War field stabilized. Want to turn up the heat? We gotta move.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the State of the Game podcast, episode 4 on May the 11th, 2010. It is, what is today? I guess Tuesday. I'm a little bit lost here. I've been so busy with school and graduating and stuff. Now that I'm done, we're back to doing StarCraft 2 every day, all day. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and introduce our guest for this episode. We have Sean Day9 Plot, as always. What's going on, Sean?
Oh, not much. I'm also just finishing my semester as well, so I've been doing pretty much only StarCraft with my time, and that's a good way to live.
Indeed, it is. So we've also got Nony. What's going on, Nony?
Yo, what's up? I'm pretty much on the same page as Sean. I finished up school, and I'm doing StarCraft 2 all day.
One thing to note is definitely in the future, Nony actually lives in the same town as I do, so we'll be doing probably a face-to-face interview with some actual HD equipment and things like that. So look for that possibly in June sometime. We haven't really set down a date or set up a date for that and everything, but look for that in the future. And last but not least, our European friend, TheLittleOne. What's going on, man?
Hi, I'm doing StarCraft 2 all day too, but I have to study still.
Oh, well, there you go. Bunch of nerds playing StarCraft 2 all day. Probably like everyone listening to this cast, just playing StarCraft 2, because it is summer for most people, at least college students. I think high school students go out relatively soon. But anyways, just some quick notes before we go and talk about the latest patch. We are doing a ton of stuff now at MLG with StarCraft 2. We've been doing the showcase series every week. This week it'll be going on Thursday at 10 o'clock CST, 8 PST, I think that is, 11 EST. That will be live on the MLG Ustream channel, which is ustream.com/channel/MLGPC, so make sure to tune into that. Also on Friday, we've got MLG Fight Night, which is kind of like, I guess you would call it a little bit of an amateur hour. We try to get in as many of the non-pros, I don't know how to really say it. We basically try to cram as many matches of StarCraft 2 into 2 hours as much as possible. We take silver ranked players, bronze ranked players, anything. We even did a 2v2 last week, which was kind of interesting. It gets a little confusing when you have to count 4 players and make sure that you're saying it is the right team. But we've got that going on. And also, which this hasn't been announced yet, but we are going to be launching the GameBattles.com StarCraft 2 1v1 ladder, which is going to be starting, I think, probably sometime this week, if not later today on Tuesday, as this is being recorded. I think they're getting ready to wrap everything up. But that's going to be a 1v1 ladder that will run for 3 weeks. And then we will do a bracket of, I think, the top 8 of that ladder. So go over to GameBattles.com to check that out. It's in the StarCraft 2 section. Game Battles is a little bit weird, so make sure you watch the video there on how to set all that up. There's a lot more information there. I won't go into too much detail here. But definitely something that StarCraft 2 people should check out. It's going to be a pretty cool tournament. The money prize is not there, which I think a lot of people are going to be upset about. But, yeah, I can't go into too much detail about that. But when you're as big as company as MLG is, you can't throw these $150 out there just for a small little tournament. But anyways, enough talking for me. Let's go ahead and get this podcast started and start talking about the patch. So patch 11 came out, was it last Thursday, guys? Or was it Friday?
Sounds right.
Something like that. A ton of changes here. So we'll go ahead and start out with the Terran battlecruiser changes. The build time decreased from 110 to 90. Now, Sean and TheLittleOne, you guys both play random. Nony playing Protoss, of course. Have you guys started using battlecruisers at all in your Terran play, or is that just kind of a change you think to the masses, I guess you could say?
Well, I mean, if I don't die early on to the million possibilities that Protoss can do, I mean, I've tried to get Battlecruiser. I mean, it's on my MO, because Battlecruisers do such an outrageous amount of damage to ground. But that was something I tried to do a lot in the early days of the patch. Or, excuse me, the early days of StarCraft 2, like around patch 4, 5, 6 or so. Nowadays, players are just using Void Rays so much, I'm not entirely confident in my idea of using battlecruisers in the later stages of the game. And really, Terran vs. Protoss is the only matchup where I can really think about really wanting to use battlecruisers. Just because Protoss doesn't have the best ground to air. The best battlecruiser killer they have are Void Rays, and because people have been using them a lot, I'm still a little leery of them at this point in time.
The little one, how about you?
I have to admit that I haven't built battlecruisers for at least 3 weeks, but I disagree about the Void Ray thing Sean is saying. I actually believe battlecruisers are pretty good against Void Rays because I don't think there's a more expensive unit you can kill with a single Yamato cannon shot.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I completely...
Yeah, it does one-shot the Void Rays.
Yeah, because I actually have not even had the chance to build the battlecruisers against Void Rays yet. I just have been losing a lot to Void Rays before then, so they have the fear in me.
You can't hear Nony laughing right now in the background. I don't know if you guys are picking that up, but Nony, I mean, what do you think about the Void Ray usage against Terran? Are you a supporter of this, or are you kind of opting for some Phoenixes, as a lot of people have seen you do in some of these show matches you've been participating in?
I believe that a combination of Phoenixes and Void Rays is usually the best way to go, and whether or not you start with Phoenixes or Void Rays, I haven't really decided yet. It might just be situational, but these people who are just building Void Rays, I think they're really missing out on the greatness of Phoenixes.
All right, we'll get into that a little bit later, as they have gotten to change themselves, the Phoenixes. But moving on to the Fusion Core, the build time has been decreased from 80 to 65. Some of these changes aren't too big, so if you guys think there's really not that much to discuss, we can go ahead and just move along. But Fusion Core changes, Sean, the little one, is that a significant change, or what are your feelings towards it?
Well, I would even just skip that discussion, because I mean, what happens is they bump the Hunter Seeker missile to being able to be upgraded without the Fusion Core. You could just get it straight up at the tech lab.
Right.
So they just dropped the Fusion Core so you could get battlecruisers earlier. They just really want people to get battlecruisers, I guess. But I mean, the Raven change feels like the bigger one to discuss
right.
as it relates to the Fusion Core. And I really wish that it was still 9 range on the Ravens for the Hunter Seeker missiles. I really wish that.
Right.
Because they theoretically nerfed the Infestor, because they made the Neural Parasite from 50 energy to 100 and made it something you have to research. But now they can mind control Ravens, and because the Neural Parasite still has range 9 and Hunter Seeker missiles don't have range 9, it's really hard to avoid.
They also nerfed the damage a couple patches ago for the Seeker missiles, am I right?
Yeah. Oh, didn't they do that in this one patch as well, or was that patch 10?
No, they decreased the area of effect, I believe.
Yeah. The splash rate. So I guess I'll just read the Raven changes here. The Seeker missile range has been decreased from 9 to 6, which is what Sean was talking about. The splash radius decreased from 2.4 to 2, and of course the upgrade is no longer requires a fusion core. So going back to what Sean was talking about, or I guess what we were all talking about, they changed the damage of the the Hunter Seeker missiles from, I think it was 280. I think to now it's about 100, or it might even be 80. I'm not 100% sure, as I don't think I've ever played a game as Terran. Maybe a little one or Sean can correct me on that if you guys know.
It's all you, Dario.
There you go, Dario. You're the stat expert here. How much damage does it do? Do you know off the top of your head? You're on the
No, not really. I didn't really use the Ravens.
All right. So, I mean, now with these changes to the Raven, kind of just nerfing the entire unit, or at least the Seeker missile as a whole. Do you think you guys are ever going to be using Raven, Sean or Dario?
Well, if I used Ravens, I always use them for the point defense drone, because I believe it's a lot more potent.
Yeah, that's always what I use them for. I mean, especially in Terran versus Terran, if you can just get 2-3 Ravens, and then you get into a Marauder versus Marauder fight, you just pop out some point defense drones, and you literally do not ever get hit. It is so cool.
Yeah, I remember
you can have 10 Marauders versus 30 and win pretty one-sidedly with your 10. It's pretty fun.
I remember watching Jinro do that in one of these games that I think Sean, you were there as well against it might have been Faith in a TVT mirror.
Yeah.
And he just threw down a ton of point difference drones, and it looks like his army wasn't even really being hit. He just saw these little lasers going everywhere on the screen, and none of the HP bars of his own units were going down. So pretty huge to use those in the TVT mirrors. Nony, I mean, I guess talking about the Raven as a whole, as a Protoss player, what are your feelings towards it? Do you even ever see it really in a PvT matchup?
Yeah, I think there's some TVP build that's like Raven, Marine, Tank. I don't know. I've seen it a couple times and I'm just like, LOL, you built a Raven. And I went, I don't know. I have not ever played a Terran who used Ravens effectively against me. Not yet.
Do you guys think it's just a type of unit that it's just going to take a lot of time for people to figure out exactly what it needs to be doing in each of the matchups, and we'll see it more significantly in the future once StarCraft 2 has been out there for a longer time?
I believe it won't really be used versus Protoss because it only stops Stalkers and Phoenix shots, I believe. And so I believe it's more of a TVT and TVC thing.
I wonder if they fixed the bug with point defense drone, because it used to be the case that whenever a Roche would fire, the point defense drone would go off and it would lose 10 energy, but it wouldn't stop any shot. So that was...
Well, I guess we'll have to check that. That's definitely not in the patch notes, so...
Because that would burn through your energy pretty fast. But, yeah, I feel like they just, there's no real good thing that it can be used against Protoss for. I mean, point defense drone is just so totally kick-ass. I mean, maybe instead of doing a Marine medevac drop or something like that, you could take like 10 Ravens and just make a bunch of auto turrets, and you could like wall in his worker line with auto turrets.
All right. So if your opponent lets you build like 10 Ravens, then yeah, I guess we could just do that.
Think about it, man. If you had 20 Ravens.
There you go, guys. That's the newest strat you're going to be seeing Terrans do now in the ladder is a 20 Raven push. They're just going to skip everything else. But moving on to some of these other changes, looks like kind of across the board now, this splash damage now originates from the center of the target rather than the impact location near the unit in order to maintain more reliable splash damage. Now, have you guys actually seen this? I guess you've all been experiencing splash damage in general when you're playing, but have you really seen this firsthand and know exactly what they're talking about?
Yes. Oh my God, it's so much better now. Oh my God, because I build a lot of tanks, especially against Zerg and Terran, and like, oh my God, they just do so much more damage. It's so cool. I mean, it used to be that like tanks literally did not hurt roaches. Like they may as well have done 0 damage, and now you can actually do pretty damn decently against them. Just get some good support in there.
Do you think it's too strong, or you think it makes awesome. Tanks viable now?
I don't like the use of that word viable because I used them beforehand. I mean, like in Terran vs. Terran, it was really nice to get a tank out, and then it fires against a crowd of Marines and kills a bunch of them. That's always been the case, but now it kills like a bunch of them. Right. So that's like really awesome. I don't know, it feels a little bit more
like it should.
Yeah, it just feels a little bit more intuitive now.
All right. One of the other changes for the siege tank is that the life was increased by 10 HP, 150 to 160. Do you think that change was warranted, Sean?
Oh yeah, 10 hit points. Yeah. What does that change?
Yeah, there's all these like arbitrary stats a lot of the times where I really have no idea. So I kind of lean over towards some of the experts out there and hope you guys can make it put it into better wording or put it into a situation for me.
Well, and the Blizzard wrote some notes down trying to explain some of these changes, and in that they said that they would just like to see tanks sometimes squeeze out one more shot before they die. So it's just like a tiny little tweak to just make tanks a little bit better, so once in a while they can get one more shot off.
Right.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's only 10 hit points, but instead of dying after 8 hits of a Marauder, it survives it survives 8 hits and dies after 9, so it's like increasing by 1/8.
Right. See, there you go, Sean. Why can't you be more like the little one and pull out these stats there?
I mean, for every other, well, okay, so it obviously is going to give you 1 or 2 extra hits for a lot of units, like a lot of low damaging units. But I just, it's just hard for me to like conceptualize. You know, like for instance, let's say Zealots killed a Zergling in 2 hits. And then they upped the life, so it took 3 hits. I would say something like, wow, that really helps relieve that. But I've never in my life been like, oh man, I just 9 hits would make it so much easier. Terran versus Terran. And I mean, really, I trust that Blizzard did the smart thing there, adding that life. But I mean, it doesn't give me big wide eyes and a big revelation. Go, oh, now it's time to make tanks, you know. So I mean, it just kind of is nice for me because I was making tanks in the first place, anyways.
All right. One of the other changes is the Hellion range being increased from 5 to 6. Is that a big change for you, Sean, or is that just another one where you have really?
That's a huge change. That's so helpful because I mean, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard before. That like it would auto fire. Not long range. Like, if you target fired, it would do range 6 before anyways. And I don't know why they designed it so that it would auto-target to range 5. That just doesn't resonate with me. You know, I just don't see what they were trying to go for. For now,
well,
like how...
I thought the way that it worked before the patch was if you target it, you could only ever shoot something 5 away, but then, like, it would do like 1 extra. I mean, well, you know how the splash for it works. It's like a line.
Yeah.
Well, like it could never shoot 6 range, but like it would shoot 5 range and then do damage like 1 step behind its target as well.
So if you did attack move, it would do range 5. But if you right clicked on a unit, it would do range 6 to it. That's what it used to. Yeah, yes.
I believe Nony is correct.
No, like, okay, so the splash did go to 6, but if you targeted... But, no, it actually did have range 6 if you specifically told it to do something.
No.
Really?
Explain yourself, little one.
I believe you had range 5, but splash 6. So you could target a Zergling at range 5, but you could still hit another Zergling which was behind him.
Yeah.
Opening up the patch notes. Hold on, let me see this really fast. Because, like, let's see here. I want to quote something. That'll make me sound really smart. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, so the weapon has always had range 6, but it would only acquire targets at range 5. So if you gave it a target that was at range 6, it would shoot it. But if you hit attack move, it wouldn't search for anything that was in range of 6. It would only search for things in the range of 5.
Yeah, that's not the way I interpreted that sentence, but...
Well, because, like, I'd been trying to do... Because I pretty much open Hellions a ton versus Zerg, and every time I right-clicked on Roach, I would have, like, superhero range, but if I just hit attack move, they would always run a little bit close. And I just thought it was something like the Dragoon, where it was, like, this retarded unit that you just had to, like, constantly manage.
Yeah.
And then I saw the patch notes, and my fist clenched with rage. So I hope I'm right. Either that or I'm just awful, which is entirely possible.
Well, in any case, the Hellion is now definitely better.
Right.
I mean, people should have a lot more successful harass than they used to. Well, I shouldn't say a lot more, but I mean, there should be a noticeable change.
It really should be a range 9 unit. That's what I'm saying, I guess.
Just be able to attack across the screen for sure. So,
yeah, it's just like, if he gets Colossi, just get some Hellions and just hit him from the back.
All right, and last but not least, probably the unit receiving the most changes looking at the patch, the Thor. I guess I'm going to go through all of these. Feel free to stop me if there's a specific one you guys want to talk about. So ground damage decreased from 45 to 30, ground rate of fire improved from 1.93 to 1.28. It's kind of some weird numbers. Air damage changed from 8 plus 4 light to 6 plus 6 light. The strike cannons are now an upgrade at the factory tech lab. They cost 150 for 110 seconds, and the energy has been increased from 100 to 150, and they also received the anti-air splash damage now originating at the center of the target. So Thor's, Sean, tell me what you know about him now.
Well, they were awesome before, and they're still awesome now. So it's weird. So the damage change, if you do the math, the overall damage output is identical. Absolutely identical.
Because of the rate of fire improving?
Yeah, they fire a lot more quickly and do a little less damage. So it's weird. So against light units, they're really good. They've been improved drastically. So against like workers, Zerglings, Marines, Thors are great. So a lot better than they used to be.
Thor drops now are just that much more amazing.
Oh yes, Thor drops. Against the bigger units, it's the same. They're about equivalent in terms of damage against like the really huge things, like defensive structures, buildings for the most part. But against those medium-sized units, they're a little bit weaker, depending on the unit. So for instance, like a Ultralisk used to be able to one-shot. A Sentry you used to be able to one-shot. But now you have to two-shot them. So it's a little bit harder to battle against those sorts of things. But it's still an unbelievably kick-ass unit. And I get the change on the 250mm cannon, because I think that the reasoning behind it was that Neural Parasite could grab a Thor so easily, and if you had two Thors, you'd grab one and just 250mm cannon the one right next to it.
Right.
I think, maybe.
We saw Slash do that a lot as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
And in addition, the Thor drop, I think that they thought was just a little bit too strong, especially if they make this change where they up the fire rate so it can kill drones even faster. If suddenly you give it the 250mm cannon, just normal as can be, then I think they assumed the Thor drop would be too scary, so they just backed it off to just some tech.
Right. The little one, what do you think about Thors now? Do you pretty much share the same thoughts as Sean?
No, I don't like them at all anymore. They were perfect before, because you could two-shot Stalkers, you could two-shot Salads and one-shot Sentries, and now you just overkill. You do the same damage over time, but you waste so much damage with overkill against Protoss units now.
Yeah, I mean, against Protoss, it's just, a lot weaker, but I wasn't really making him in that matchup. I was making him mainly against Terran and Zerg. So...
Yeah, but how can you build him when he has Infestors? You just die.
But he has to research it, so at the very least I get a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Nony, what are your thoughts on the Thor unit having probably gone up against it quite a lot as the TOS player?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a lot weaker against TOS now. You can't... I mean, if going Thor drop and trying to harass with it is just not going to be anywhere near as effective. But I do have a question that maybe our omniscient friend, TheLittleOne, will know, because he knows everything, apparently. If you get weapons upgrades now, like with the Thor, how much damage does it add per upgrade, and how much did it do before? Because if it's the same, then the weapons upgrades are more valuable now, because it's a bigger percentage increase off the base damage.
Before it was 5, so it was basically 10 because he has 2 attacks.
Yeah.
And now it's 3.
Okay, that's sad. I think they should have kept it still 5, but to help him out a little bit. But that's too bad.
So, little one, I'm curious. Do you just have a spreadsheet open at all times, or do you have one printed out with all the stats and upgrades of everything, or do you just inherently know all of this?
No, I just remembered.
All right, I guess the little one proving that his memory is much more or much better than everyone's here.
We ask these questions, and his eyes roll back in his head, and he's like, accessing database.
Just because of Supreme Commander, I believe. Because their units had 30 different stats. Turning rates of turrets, turning rates, acceleration, and stuff like that.
So I kind of want to delve into that a little bit more. Were you one of the top players in that game, or the top player in that game?
Yeah, probably top 5 in 1-on-1 and one of the best teams in 2v2 with my brother.
In terms of similarities between StarCraft, what are some of the skills that you think kind of transitioned over from Supreme Commander to StarCraft 2?
Probably macro and multitasking, and the will to never give up.
See, I think I played the original Supreme Commander like once or something, and it was the one where I don't think it's Supreme Commander 2. You can't like zoom out to see the entire world anymore, right? They did away with that.
Yeah, they removed. No, wait a second. Now you're talking about Total Annihilation?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that one I never played. It was like the predecessor of Supreme Commander.
All right. I was just curious because I mean I don't think I've ever heard of any other StarCraft 2 players who's done as well as you have coming from Supreme Commander. So we've all heard of like Warcraft 3 players doing quite well, but has anyone else from Supreme Commander come over and done as well as you, or is considered a good player in your eyes?
Well, I know a lot of players who are starting StarCraft 2 now as well, and well, they are doing pretty well. They are slowly climbing up their Platinum leagues.
Interesting. I guess we'll have to keep an eye out for the Supreme Commander players. Who would have ever thought that the top Supreme Commander players would come over to StarCraft 2 and just do as well as everyone else has? It's quite surprising, at least in my eyes. But moving on, enough of me talking. We'll go ahead.
I want to add to that a little bit, like, because I just dislike this idea that only people who played StarCraft will be good at StarCraft 2. Because I mean, there's been a lot of really good Warcraft 3 players. I actually have not spoken to a single like WoW only player.
Well, interesting enough, Nadagast, he was never quite pro level in terms of he was never sponsored in WoW, but he's a Terran player in StarCraft 2, and I think that Artosis actually uses him as a training partner.
Yeah.
Quite exclusively too. I haven't really seen him outside. We had him on the fight night against another WoW player, and he has absolutely demolished him. So it was a TVZ, and he just destroyed the Zerg player. But other than that, I think O'Reilly is the only other. He's the European WoW guy who's kind of done well for himself in StarCraft 2, at least in the beginning of the beta. I'm not sure if he's still up there in the higher ranks right now. But sorry for interrupting. You continue your thought.
Yeah, there's just a lot of talent from like a lot of games, just a lot of interesting perspectives. So yeah, but I guess I'm saying I need to get better.
All right, Sean admitting he's bad, I guess, in his eyes.
So I need to figure this out, yeah.
So we'll go ahead and pick things back up there after the little emo-ness from Sean. We'll move on to the Protoss balance changes. Starting with the Archon splash radius has been increased from 0.8 to 1. And of course, they're also receiving the splash damage now originating from the center of the target. Nony, Archon's beloved in StarCraft 1, is this change at all going to make them worth anything in StarCraft 2 in your eyes?
I will not get them more often, but I guess they'll do better when I do get them. So,
do you have any builds where you kind of always think, oh, I got to get that Archon right now, or is it just
no? Not a single one. In fact, I have not even thought of a build that might do that. Has never crossed my mind.
What's so different about the unit from StarCraft 1 to StarCraft 2 that you think possibly needs to be changed?
Well, I don't think anything needs to be changed. I mean, they've changed the role of it. They've clearly stated that it's just like the afterbirth of the Templar. Like once he runs out of energy, like a Archon just comes out and screws around. But like in StarCraft Brood War, you could just go Archons if you wanted to, and you were meant to be able to do that. And I mean, if they don't want the Archon to be like that in StarCraft 2, I guess it just won't be like that.
Right.
It's not like Protoss needs it. It's not like these poor, sad little Protosses who are like raping everyone in every matchup needed their Archon to be for moral purposes.
I mean, do you think that, honestly, to me, it seems like the unit shouldn't really even be in the multiplayer. Like, it doesn't serve a purpose. And I know that they've kept a lot of units exclusively for the single player because they think that a lot of things are overlapping, kind of like the Firebat and the Hellion, I think, is an example. But do you just think the Archon really will never, ever be used? It's just a horrible unit in multiplayer, Sean.
I'm always a little leery of saying that it'll never be used because players get real clever over time and do some brilliant stuff. Because, I mean, for instance, in Brood War, in the early days, the Vulture was considered that weak, dumb, garbagey unit that no one wants to get. Like, seriously, if you watch, there's a really famous game between Boxer and Dida 8 BG on Lost Temple. It was before their World Cyber Games match. And Terran only goes tanks, just 4 factory tanks, would maybe get 8 vultures, but only tanks, that's it. And then in Terran vs. Terran, you never got vultures, and now it's just a standard staple unit in almost all the matchups, so players just figure stuff out over time, so I trust that someone will be clever enough, to bust out an Archon, but absolutely 100% I have not ever wanted to make an Archon and been eager to make Archons because all the other choices for Protoss are just way better.
Right. The little one, you pretty much resonate the same things that Nony and Sean are saying?
Yeah, completely agree.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on.
Got him to agree.
There you go, finally. We'll go ahead and move on to the Colossus. Damage has been decreased from 20 to 15, and the rate of fire has been improved from 2.2 to 1.65. And also, there was another change where it can actually move and attack at the same time. Is that confirmed, or is that just something that someone said on the forums that's absolutely not true, Nony?
I think that thing about moving and attacking there's nothing that changed about it. The Colossus has always been kind of weird, you have to wait till the attack animation's completely done before you give it a move command, or else it won't do damage. You can easily tell it to attack and see the lasers, and they'll even do the little crossing thing, and then you tell the Colossus to move and no damage is done. And as far as I know, that's how it was before this patch too. But kiting is definitely weaker now because you have to stop to shoot more often in order to sustain the same amount of damage. So whatever it is you're running away from is going to catch you a lot easier. And other than that, I think this change definitely makes armor upgrades a lot stronger against Colossus because it has it's a double attack, so already armor is helping you twice as much, and then it's a splash attack, so every time the Colossus attacks, if you get 1 armor upgrade, it's doing 10 less damage, depending on how many units it hits. And so the sustained damage is the same if you're upgrading the same, but if they're getting ahead of you with upgrades, then this change with more frequent attacks that do less damage is gonna hurt the Protoss.
All right, Sean, what are your feelings about the Colossus change?
They're better against Marines, and that's awesome because it used to be 40 damage a shot, which meant that I like Little One's word on that, the overkill damage. I mean, to kill a Marine, if you did 2 shots, that's 80 damage. And the Marine with the upgrade would have 55 life, so there's a lot that was in the overkill. But, now they do 30 damage, which means 2 shots is 60 damage. So it still kills the Marine in 2 hits, but they're shooting faster now. So that puts a big smile on my face for that matchup. Against Zerg, it's a tad weaker. You're better against Hydralisks by a lot as well, because 3 shots is 90 damage, and Hydras have 80 life. Whereas before, it was 2 shots was 80 damage, but if you got any armor upgrade for the Hydralisks, which the Zergs pretty much are gonna have, it was back to 3 shots for the Colossus. So, I mean, it's really good against a lot of what I would consider the important units. So I'm pretty satisfied with the change. Well, I shouldn't say satisfied, because it's just better against a lot of the things I want it to be better against.
All right.
But I mean, things like Zerglings, it's now 2 shots against, and I think I'm sort of fine with that, and that it's kind of like the same against a lot of the things. But yeah.
But if you
I
get
guess
weapons upgrades, I think there's a +3 Colossus.
it's
kill it
+2
in
to
one hit.
each thing, so it's +4 damage total. So you do need the +2 attack, which is pretty important.
Yeah, but if the Zerg is getting armor upgrades, then do you need +3?
I mean,
You need-
even if you get +3, yeah, I
Like
guess
if they
you
get
will.
3 armor, then you need 3 weapons, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. I agree with you.
I think the less overkill thing that is a result of this kind of change is actually a lot more helpful than people think. In like big battles where there's nothing really exact going on, like you have like 8 Colossus and they're all kind of attacking different things because you just have them in auto attack, and like your support units are doing a little bit of damage here and there, so just the Colossus damage, the multipliers don't really matter. So, but overkill should be greatly reduced by a change like this, and that'll help the Protoss a ton. So I feel like there's some battles where this change is gonna be pretty helpful to Protoss, but I'm not sure what you guys think about that. How helpful do you think reducing overkill just in those like gigantic battles actually is?
Yeah, I believe it's pretty important. But also on a side note, I believe Colossus has +2 for a damage upgrade before the patch, and still has +2. So Colossus does actually more damage in late game now than he did in before the patch.
Do you guys have feelings about that, or is that just kind of hooray, I guess?
Yeah, that's totally accurate. I actually was playing games last night and noticing that, and it was pretty awesome once you get to +2 and +3.
Yeah, Protoss need to be getting weapons upgrades if they're going Colossus. Like, they just absolutely need to. I guess you can kind of justify not getting as many weapons upgrades if you're going for Storm, because obviously that does not benefit from it, and that'll be your main damage dealer. But if you're going Colossus, definitely you got to get weapons upgrades going soon, and you might even want to be chrono boosting them if you can.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, because you go from 30 damage to 42 damage. It's like the Goliath attack upgrade. It's just like so good.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the Sentry change and save the Phoenix, because I know Nony wants to probably talk about that a lot. We'll move on to the Sentry change. The damage has been decreased from 8 to 6. We'll start off with the TheLittleOne on this. First off, he's been I've just been throwing the questions at Sean and Nony lately. So, the TheLittleOne, what are your thoughts on the Sentry damage change?
It's a tough question. I didn't really think the Sentry is as good as everybody was saying it is, because it was still a pretty weak unit compared to other units. And you could counter force fields as Zerg with bird roaches, but now they are just really, really weak. And I don't like it because they were a central part of my PvP, and now I can't play them anymore. But it's probably still a good change, because now it makes it more of a caster unit, and probably increases the role of the stalkers.
What, you said that you use them exclusively in PvP before the patch. Well, what are some of the army compositions that you're now shooting for in that matchup?
Basically, only stalkers with blink.
Sean, Nony, what do you guys think about that in your PvP matchups?
I think the sentries being worse is an improvement for PvP. They were
the matchup.
They were a little, yeah. It lets you have more options, because like going Zealot Sentry was really, really strong, and now it's a bit weaker, and it's a lot easier to survive somebody who's going Zealot Sentry if you're trying to do something a little more fancy. And I'd like to see the matchup have a lot of options available to the players.
Sean, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just like exactly what Noni said. I mean, they're like, I think Nazgul's most famous for just opening up 3 Warp Gate in every single matchup and then going, Zealot Sentry and doing a nice timing push, and you'd have a lot of units, and then you would infinitely force field the bottom of your ramp. And you would just immediately lose, because you could never move down. And you couldn't stop any player from doing this, really, because the sentries were just so strong, they did so much damage. So I do like that they're a little bit weaker. I feel like the usage of force fields in the game is really cool and really interesting, and I wouldn't want to see less force fields. But I do like the fact that, it does make the sentry a little bit more of a spellcaster with a cool bonus that it does damage, as opposed to this really meaty attacking unit that also has all these amazing spells. Because it reminds me of the way that a lot of the spellcasters worked in Warcraft 3 in some of the early patches when there were issues, where a lot of the spellcasters' regular attack was just so good that you could just go mass spellcaster with many of the races, and that was the way that you should be playing, because their regular attacks were just as good as some regular units that you could make. So I dig the change, especially because they made my Colossi better.
Do you guys think this was kind of Blizzard's way of dealing with the force field problem, making the unit do less damage? So in many people's minds, the unit is something that they don't want to use, kind of like the little one was just saying? Or do you think they were just they thought that the Sentry was just doing too much damage?
I really like this change as it relates to force fields, because actually I think it was really brilliant, because everyone was like focusing on how do you change the force field spell.
Yeah.
And changing the damage on the Sentry was just like, I mean, in late game, here's where sentries are like really strong, is where you get them in early game and they help you set up an expansion, put pressure on your opponent, something like that. But they don't die, and then they just sit there with 200 energy. And then as you go into mid game, you spend all your gas on like heavy hitters like Templars or very often Colossus, and then you have this mid game push where you have like 1 million force fields and 1 million guardian shields, and you just go out there and you own your opponent. If your opponent survives that and all your sentries died during that battle, it's really hard to justify making a lot of sentries after that point because of this damage change. Like, especially as your opponent gets armor upgrades, your sentries are just not going to be, even if you get weapons upgrades to cancel them out, your sentries just aren't doing that great damage. And, the force fields, I just feel like it's more balanced now, that it's going to be harder to justify spending, getting like 2 less Colossus in order to get 4 sentries if you're just looking at the cost of the gas. So yeah, late game sentries are definitely worse. But then the other genius thing about the damage change is that to a certain extent it did change the early game, because of like we were just saying, the Zealot sentry pushes, those were too strong. So those got weaker, but a whole lot of other early game uses for the sentry are still fine. You can still go basically use the same builds that you were using before and survive. And it's hard to be as offensive with sentries now in the early game.
All right. Well, there you have Nony's complete thoughts on the Sentry unit. We'll go ahead and move on to Phoenix, and I'm not even going to read the change. Nony, tell me what you know about Phoenixes in patch 11.
I think for an advanced player, this change doesn't even matter that much. Like, it hasn't helped me that much.
Is it just something you were inherently doing beforehand, and now it just kind of is there, I guess? Or
I mean, like, I don't know. I still need to mess with it some more. It's definitely a little bit easier for me in some situations, but it hasn't really changed how good the Phoenix. Like, if you're trying to say, can I go Phoenix in this situation, this change hasn't really altered your decision making. Like, either the Phoenix was working before or it wasn't, and either it's working now or it wasn't, and it's pretty much the same. They are like when you're harassing, you can move them, like, you like lift something in the air, you can move all your Phoenix to like the edge of their range, and then as soon as it dies, you can retreat them. So you can like minimize damage a little bit better. And obviously, if you're not paying attention to them and they fly by like an overlord, they're going to kill it. And like before they wouldn't have, because you definitely don't want to be sending them on attack move when they're just going around the map. But now they will just blow things up and speed on by. But yeah, I mean, there's been so many people going Phoenix now because it's so cool how they attack, and like they're all losing their games.
Sean, what are your feelings about the Phoenix moving well, or can attack while moving now?
I literally cannot stop laughing every time I see a Phoenix fire. And just the way they like dance around, it just looks so silly. It just cracks me up. Because I mean, in Brood War, there was this feeling of, I discovered how to micro this unit. I figured it out. Like with Mutalisks, even after stacking was figured out. You know, how do you get at the right angles? What's the timing on the attacking, and trying to dart around and get just the right position. And here it's just like, hey, look, they now fly backwards. Isn't that easy? You can micro them now. It's like they just tried to create the most artificial looking, hey, look, guys, we made it microable. All right, great. So there's micro in the game now. Like, I don't know. I would have, if they wanted to make the Phoenix more like high-level nerd friendly, I would have liked the turning radius to be increased dramatically and the deceleration to be decreased. Because then I feel like I would be whipping around at good angles, trying to figure out when to shoot and when to click retreat, and if I didn't do that perfectly, then, oh man, the shot didn't fire off when it's so important to get all those shots off. Because, I mean, it's pretty easy to do the move and shoot with the Phoenixes now. And, like I was just saying, it's absolutely hilarious the way it looks. I do want to turn to something I did say. I do get annoyed when people say there's no micro in the game, because I feel like there's plenty of that. But I feel like with the Phoenix, Blizzard heard a lot of people arguing, oh, there's no micro in the game. It's BS. We hate it. And they said, well, all right, how about this? And they went as overboard as they possibly could.
I don't actually have that list that Nony was referring to about all the changes, but do you happen to know what they said this change was brought upon for in that list, Nony? Do you remember what they said?
They focused on Mutalisk, I think, because now, like, a Phoenix can kill a Mutalisk without ever taking any damage, because
they could just kite it or whatever.
Yeah, they have 5 range, and Mutalisk has 4 range, and also the Phoenix can move a lot faster. Oh, it's 3 range?
Super fucking bad.
Yeah, but the Phoenix can fly a lot faster, which makes it just really easy to just sit, like, at the edge of the maximum Phoenix range, and a Mutalisk will never be able to hit the Phoenix.
So
that's all they focused on. That's all they said.
I need to reword what you said, because you said, now it's easy for a Phoenix to be a Mutalisk, but I worried that the change was, now it's easy for the people at Blizzard's Phoenixes to beat people at Blizzard's Mutalisks. Because, like, for instance, it's easy for my Mutalisk to snipe an Archon, because I practiced it for 4 weeks, right? Like, without trying to get hit, but it's not easy for an average user. And that's one thing that, like, bothers me a little bit about it, is that, like, any player now can pretty easily just, thump a Mutalisk with a bunch of Phoenixes.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of sad in that respect, because before the patch, I kind of felt like I could only go Phoenix if the Zerg went Mutalisk. Like, that's the only situation I could justify Phoenixes in. And now a Zerg doesn't dare go Mutalisk and ZVP anymore. It's like, I'd like to have a little worse Phoenixes so that I can bait them in and then be like, oh, my Phoenixes aren't that bad, actually, and just roll over them. But now they just won't dare do it.
Dario, what are your feelings about the Phoenix? Sean and Nony have been talking a lot about it. We haven't really heard your thoughts yet.
Yeah, and I think it's just about the Mutalisk too. I mean, what else does it change, really?
Yeah. All right, so I guess we'll go and move on to the Zerg changes. Let's Let's start off with the Broodlord life being decreased from 275 to 225. Probably the biggest life or the HP change in all the patches, I think, and also the armor being decreased from 2 to 1. Pretty much every high-level player out there and pretty much any StarCraft 2 player out there was calling the Broodlord completely and utterly overpowered, pretty much all around. Sean, what are your thoughts now about the Broodlord with the much lower HP and, of course, the armor decrease?
So I'm going to try to be brief because I've been ranting quite a good bit. As you might imagine, I'm currently on a losing streak, so it's coming out here a little bit. But Broodlords are still very scary. I agree with everyone else that they were outrageously scary beforehand, and now they're just a good kind of scary. But it bothers me that they are the only scary Hive thing. When I get Hive as Zerg, I just get Broodlords and 3/3 upgrades, and occasionally the Roach Burrow upgrade. That's about it. And I wish that when I got to Hive, there was this, what should I do? I have so many choices of how to screw my opponent over. So that's the one thing that does bug me a touch.
All right. Little One, what are your thoughts about Broodlords now?
It opened one option for me I haven't really tried yet. Because of the HP decrease, I'm currently thinking about countering Broodlords with ghosts in TVC, which would be quite interesting actually, if you could snipe them now, because you now only need, I believe, 5 or 6 shots, and before the patch you needed 2 shots more or something. So that might be pretty cool actually.
I've never even thought about that. So he's just mind equals blown, I guess. But moving, I guess if no one else really has any thoughts about the Broodlord, Sean or Nony, or I guess Nony, do you have any specific examples of things that you've encountered in games playing against Broodlords?
Well, I think this change is good, just because if you can attack the Broodlord, it should die a little bit easier than it used to. So right now, if the Zerg is able to protect their Broodlords from attack, which is what they really should be able to do with, their ridiculous range and all the Broodlings and all that, the Broodlords aren't supposed to be attacked pretty much, but they used to be able to tank and take all this damage. They should be a little more fragile, and this is pretty much exactly the appropriate change.
Do you think a change to the Broodlings is still warranted, or is the unit for now good? I guess balanced. I guess maybe is the word. Whoever wants to answer that.
I'm pretty fine with them.
I think Archons and Colossi will kill Broodlords, the Broodlings easier now, so that might help a little bit.
Right.
But I don't know. I haven't seen it in action yet. I haven't played that many games on this patch yet.
All right, we'll move on to I guess we'll go on to the Corruptor instead of jumping over to the other Hive unit. But Corruptor received quite a lot of changes. The damage changed from 12 to plus 10 massive to 14 to plus 6 massive. Its speed also increased from 2.75 to 2.9531. Another really out there when it comes to statistics, but also the corruption ability has been redesigned. It is a single target 20% damage increase taken that lasts 30 seconds, costs 100 energy, has 6 range, and it can no longer target structures. I guess, Little One, what do you think about, first off, the Corruptor change to damage and speed, and second off to this new ability, or this old ability with new usage, I guess?
I do like the speed and the damage increase to non-massive units, but I'm kind of sad about the change about the ability, because before the patch the corruption ability was pretty cool, because you could delay upgrades, you could delay even new bases that were being built, because it stopped buildings from being built.
I never really saw that in any of the high-level games that I can think of, though. But maybe you were just kind of above everyone else there when it came to using.
Happened in Zerg vs. Protoss a lot.
Yeah.
On which structures? Sorry to interrupt you again, but just...
one big problem I see is what do you do against the planetary fortress as Zerg now before you get Broodlords?
Sean, do you have an answer for that?
Oh, were you asking me? Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I think he was just saying in general, but I don't play
you could
Zerg, so
blow
I
it up
can't
with
answer.
Banelings, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it. Oh, well, I mean, like in Zerg vs. Protoss, I would generally have like 6 or 7 corruptors just sort of hanging out to deal with the Colossi. Against Terran, you would just get exactly one corruptor to negate a planetary fortress. But I mean, against Protoss, there was this really interesting tension and behavior with the corruptors where you'd get in this huge battle and you'd lose most of your ground units, or like you'd be in the battle, his Colossi would fall, and you'd still be duking it out, and then you'd run your corruptors to his base and corrupt all his buildings. So then you could bounce in for a counterattack really soon. And that was cool. Or if you weren't in a battle, trying to poke around his base and to corrupt a forge. It's like these corruptors became this very active harassment unit in a very weird sort of way. And I really liked the way that behaved, and I liked the way that felt. And now, 20% extra damage taken. Or what you could do is just not make a corruptor, and then whatever unit you made with that money would do more than 20% extra damage,
Right.
And so I don't have that feeling of tension. Now corruptors just kind of fly around and bump into things.
What I probably should have opened this beforehand, but maybe one of you has it open or remembers. What exactly did Blizzard say about that change? I mean, did they just not see corruption, the old corruption being used much and across all the different divisions? Or 'cause it seems like to me that, like Sean just said, you might as well just make another unit because you'll be doing more damage instead of the 20%.
So I'm going to read this out loud because this bothers me. Okay, one thing that, I don't know if you said this, but the corruption used to be 75 energy to negate a building. And now it's 100 energy for a 20-second damage increase. So,
Right.
This is what they said. All of these changes are a buff to the corruptor. You will pay less gas for a similar level of corruptor firepower. The corruptor is faster and more able to keep up with your Mutalisks. In addition, a special ability has changed. You no longer use corruptors just to stun important enemy buildings, but you can weaken important enemy units on the battlefield to make them more vulnerable to attack by both your air and ground units. Not all these changes were a buff to the corruptor. The plus 20% damage, I really have never been in a scenario where there is a unit that needs to die so fast
Right.
that even by target firing it, I cannot kill it fast enough and think if only I could kill it 20% faster.
Well, it seems like, I mean, when corruptors come out, it seems to be about mid to late game almost. And just the forces, the army compositions are going to be so large by that time that you're never really going to see, like you just said, one unit that needs to die faster than you could just kill it by clicking all over units and just killing it that much faster. So, again, I'm not sure what, I guess not what they were thinking, but what they think this is going to do that the original corruption already, it seems like it doesn't serve a purpose now, I guess is what I'm getting at.
It just made the corruptor so much less interesting. It was one of the most interesting units. It was one of those units that I didn't use a lot, but said to myself, I could probably figure out some cool things if I sat down with it. Or, I'm not going to do anything with the corruptor, but the community will make some amazing discoveries with it. Like, well, hey, what if you did a Mutalisk harass and threw in one corruptor? You go to the back of their base, there's 2 turrets, well, corrupt them, then run in and kill off their SCVs and back out again. That seems like an interesting idea to me. Have not tried it, and now I'll never have...
Oh, now you can't even target structures. Never mind, I was going to say you could do 20% more damage to the turrets, but...
I could be doing 11 damage instead of 9.
All right. Is there anything else you guys kind of want to? Me and Sean have probably just trashed this change enough, but Nony
Fuck corruptors, man.
Nony or Dario, do you guys have any things that you want to discuss more about corruptors, or should we move on to the Infestor?
Well, I think in ZVP, obviously, they're just going to corrupt every Colossus on the field and kill the Colossi faster. And I actually feel like the old corruptor spell was a little bit overpowered because, for example, if a Protoss does like a mid-game push with his Colossi and it fails, but he kills like almost all of the Zerg units, so he's not going to die to a counterattack. He can live to see another battle. Well, all the corruptors fly in with like max energy. There's like 6 or 7 of them left over, and every single production building cannot do anything. and then the Zerg just needs one production round to just go in and kill you. Like, the game's over. That happened to me a couple times, and I felt like it was like
There's
an
nothing
extremely
you can do.
strong, extremely strong finishing move. I mean, it was bad enough. Like, okay, I didn't have enough anti-air to protect my Colossus, but then you're gonna lose the game right after that.
So you felt like Scorpion just ripped off his mask and blew flames at you, right? So what you're saying.
Yeah, I thought it was a really strong ability the way it used to be, and now it's just gonna be the Zerg kind of have like they're not very in Zerg vs Protoss. I feel like the battles aren't very interesting to micro for Zerg. That's all it is positioning, and once you do your positioning, you just like attack move. And now at least they have a little bit of casting they can do, but I don't know. I don't really care how the Zerg players feel.
All right. The little one, do you have any extra thoughts?
You could have solved your problems with a single Templar in your base and just feedback the corruptor. So I don't think it would have been a big issue. I mean,
in the case of a Colossus timing push, you have not spent like 400 gas on getting a Templar out.
Yeah, true.
This is like a mid-game timing push where, you just go in as soon as you get like a critical mass of Colossus. But I don't know. Yeah.
I really feel like the old corruption ability could have been like slow building by 50% when it's on there instead of buildings not working.
Yeah,
or
kind of a counteract to the chrono boost, basically.
Yeah, or it only lasts 20 seconds instead of 30 or something like that. I felt like it could have been toned down a bit instead of just like this ability will never be fair and then just sort of
yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the Infestor changes then. I'm sure we'll get quite the discussion out of this. Neural Parasite is now an upgrade at the Infestation Pit. It costs 150, 150, and 110 seconds to research. It can also target air units, which I think is probably the biggest change out of all this. And it also has the energy cost increase from 50 to 100. So, Sean, why don't you go ahead and start the discussion out about the Infestor changes?
Well, you heard a lot of what I was saying before. I mean, Neural Parasite used to be absolutely, totally unfair and awesome. I mean, literally, your opponent was not allowed to make a big unit because the Infestor would spawn with enough energy to grab it at range 9. So now that they have this, you can Thor drop a little bit more easily. You can comfortably have bigger units in your army a little bit more easily. But the fact that they can now target air, it freaks me out a little bit because I want to make Ravens, but now I just feel a little bit about getting Ravens. Because at the point in time where I would have Ravens, my Zerg opponent would definitely have Infestors, definitely would have had the time to research Neural Parasite, and definitely would have enough energy. And I've seen many games where there's a big battle, actually I've seen 3 games, where there's a huge battle, and the Zerg just Neural Parasites every single Raven, throws down point defensive drones, and just there's no Marauders firing in.
Demolishes the Terran player.
Yeah, or like Thor drops now are a lot weaker, but now I can mind control your dropship, and you just lose everything there a lot more easily. So I'm unsure about it. I feel the change to the Raven was definitely unfamiliar to me and freaked me out the first time it happened to me.
All right, the little one. What are your thoughts about the Infestor changes?
Yeah, I basically agree with Sean. I believe it solves a lot of early game issues, but in the late game it might really make things complicated because you can't drop at all anymore against Zerg because it was really cool how you could drop Zerg with like 5 medivacs, destroy some stuff and then get out. But if he has only 4 or 5 Infestors, you can just grab your dropships and you're completely screwed. And you can also you can't build battlecruisers or motherships against Zerg at all anymore. I mean, not a lot of people did it right now, but it might have been a viable option in the future. And it's just there to have a mothership. I mean, single Infestor comes by and vortexes your whole army. It's silly.
One of the things, Sean, I guess this is a little bit of a specific example, but one of the things that come to mind was the Thor drop that we saw Jinro do against, I think it was Slush on Desert Oasis in some of those matches we were observing about a week ago. It was a Thor Viking drop, and he pretty much stopped it by just neuroparasiting one of the Thors, and then the Vikings basically just had to run away with the other dropship. With this, Neuroparasite now being an upgrade and also taking 110 seconds, do you think that strategy is going to be that much more stronger against a TVZ matchup?
Oh, well, definitely, yeah. And I mean, like, I think that, fortunately for Zerg, their only option, or they didn't just have that as their only option to defend.
Right.
So now they can, use better positioning with a pretty wide variety of units. I mean, they can get roaches to deal with the Thor. They can get Hydros to try to stop the Medivacs and also to try to deal more damage to the Thor, because also the Thor is a little weaker against the Hydralisks. And even Mutalisks are pretty decent at killing Thors. You need, 6 or 7 of them to be able to take one out, but you can still do it. And then you can sort of counter push pretty easily and then pin the Terran back.
How much change did the splash damage now originating from the center of the target change the anti-air for Thors? Have you guys seen uses of that? I guess against Mutalisk, Sean, specifically.
Yeah, I've experienced it. I mean, they're better against Mutalisk by a lot. It's a little harder, but now I have to control my Mutalisk better, and I like that. I like that
right.
demand being placed on me.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the Spine and Spore Crawler changes being increased double now from 6 to 12 seconds of root time. I'm not, again, this is where I need to be able to pull up the Blizzard changes to why they did this, but Sean and the Little One, in y'all's games of playing Zerg or playing against Zerg, I guess for everyone here, how big is this change? I mean, is 6 seconds of root time that much of a change for Zerg players?
I believe it's huge, and I believe Blizzard overreacted a little bit. It felt a little bit too strong, because you could move your sunken colonies from your natural to your main in no time. But I believe maybe 9 seconds would have been a little bit more reasonable than 12, because it's a really, really long time, and if you have to deal with Reapers, for example, in early game, it's really hard now.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with everything. Don't really have anything to add. Yeah, it's just like impossible to reposition now.
Right.
They are almost static structures now.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that they're strong enough to be static.
I mean, do you think that's something that from the get-go Blizzard designed them to be? I forget, some commentator used a really great term to call the spore crawlers, but now you're calling them static defenses. Do you think that kind of from the get-go that's what Blizzard designed them to be, and then players started seeing that, well, you can pick them up and move them to push with a force mid-game or to defend against Reaper attacks like you just said?
I think that there was this, with the ability to add extra larvae, you kind of had this big mass giant army style thing. And I think that they wanted to give Zerg the ability to, how do I want to say that? I guess they just didn't want Zerg to be all static, just like build defenses and sit and be like really passive. And it was cool, the idea to make a weaker defensive structure that could move around a little bit more. Kind of fits in with their theme of like just narratively, like the way they got this creep expansion to work into the game. And I feel like the Spine and Spore Crawlers are an extension of that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they were noticing like, wow, we made something cool with Spine and Spore Crawlers, but we also made something that's a little too easy to abuse. And they just went crazy, like doubling it. Like now all of a sudden I was actually playing a game against TheLittleOne the other day, and I unburrowed my Spine Crawler, and right at that exact second, I saw his units moving towards me, and I was just like, I'm dead. Because I started to burrow, and he's like digging and digging, there's all these Marines coming. And it was at 100 hit points when it finally was able to do its first headbutt, and then it died. And I was like, I'm never unburrowing again. So, that I like a little bit less. And one thing I just wanted to throw out there, since we're almost done with the patch changes, is that I don't think we've yet seen Blizzard make a change in one of the patches and then undo that change.
Yeah.
In one of the later patches? Is that accurate?
I think that's 100% accurate. Yeah, I can't think of anything. And at least the shows that we've been doing now with, I think almost every show's had a patch discussion in it. Nothing has been counteracted or changed back. Or retroactively changed, I mean.
Yeah, I wonder if that'll happen here soon.
Just for the Spore and Spine Crawlers?
Spore and Spine Crawlers I feel like need to be adjusted a little bit. And also, what was the other one?
Corruption?
Yeah, Corruption. I just do not think that Corruption is going to stay that spell.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that the game is broken and imbalanced now and Blizzard's retarded, but Spider Sense is telling me that ability is not going to stay that way.
All right. Nony, one of the things I want to talk about with you in PvZ, we see a lot of people talk about this 2-gate aggression to open with against PvZ, and now with the Spine Crawler taking an extra 6 seconds to burrow, do you see that 2-gate opener is just a lot more stronger? Because if they have their Spine Crawler in a poor place to where you can harass a spawning pool or a couple drones and they can't actually attack, is that opener just too strong now with this change?
I don't think that opener is affected as much as like going 3 or 4 warp gate pressure on certain maps, like Kulas Ravine. Yeah. Is the main one. I don't really feel like the 2-gate thing is that affected, but the big change is when Zerg relies on them to survive, and you're playing on a map where you can poke around from multiple angles, which Kulas Ravine is the main one, and I can't think of the others, but
it's maybe or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Once you can start destroying rocks and it gets really difficult. So, yeah, I see Zergs. I think Zergs will get them a lot less, and they'll try to survive by making roaches and lings sooner, or hydras if that's applicable.
All right. Well, the last change in patch 11 in terms of the balance changes is the Ultralisk damage being increased from 18 to 25. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they did say they were going to have some more changes in store for the Ultralisk. But to start things off with, they did up the damage. The little one, are you going to be getting Ultralisk at all? Is this change warrant for that, or what are your thoughts?
I believe they are still completely useless because Marauders counter them really, really good. And Immortals just slaughter Ultralisk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And force fields would kind of LOL.
And if I want to go Ultralisk, I want to go circling Ultralisk. Maybe it's because I'm used to it in StarCraft 1. But if I want to do it, and if I do it, my Ultralisk can't even attack because they are so huge that the Zerglings will block my units. And they will never reach it.
Yeah.
So, Sean and Nony, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, this change just with the they have said that they're going to do more changes, but this one so far hasn't made any difference because, I mean, the problem wasn't that they're not doing enough damage. It's just that there's other units
in the first place. Or?
Yeah, like the little one said. I mean, Marauders, Immortals, and if the Protoss really needed to, force fields. The Ultras just so you could. I mean, I would kind of love to have like a top Zerg player play me on like a custom map where you change the Ultra damage to 50. And I'm just like, all right, you have to go Ultras, and I'm going to beat you anyway. Because I think I honestly could, because they just can't get in to do their damage. Really.
Do you think that maybe like giving them an ability, whether it has to be researched or not? I guess I'll say it doesn't have to be researched, but giving them like a charge ability where they can actually get up to attack the units that are actually doing damage to them, or making it where these units can just not be slowed by Marauders, something like that, to where it kind of ties into the lore of the Ultralisk.
How about you give the Ultralisk the fucking 250mm cannon? That'll make it
just strapped onto his
seriously.
back.
Yeah, there's nothing that... the big issue I actually have with the Ultralisk is not just the unit itself. It's like everything else around it.
better.
So first of all, how am I going to get the upgrades for this Ultralisk? When am I going to be getting Carapace and Melee? In the early mid-game stages, I am making the ranged units primarily, Hydralisks and Roaches. I really cannot see a lot of super effective ways to be getting a largely Zergling force and upgrading that largely melee Zergling force so that when I do get Hive, I can get 3/3 Ultralisks out pretty easily. And also, if I'm getting a Hive, why am I not getting the Broodlords, which are a lot stronger? I mean, it's like all the other alternatives steer me away from that as hard as possible.
Right. I was actually just reading through some of the questions here in preparation for when we wrap up this talk, and you just basically said exactly what this guy was saying in terms of why or when would I ever want Ultralisk. So pretty hilarious there. But is there anything else you guys want to talk about specifically in terms of the Ultralisk, or should we go ahead and move on to user questions?
User questions.
I just wanted to get one more thought out because Sean said he doesn't want to get melee upgrades, and I believe it's a little bit of a flaw for most Zerg players right now because they don't see the power of it. Most people say it's only for Zerglings, but that's plainly wrong because it's also for Banelings and for Broodlords as well because if you don't have melee upgrades, they won't be nearly as effective as if you have them. I had a game versus Dark Force, I believe. I had 3 upgrades, and he had no melee upgrades at all. He had 15 Broodlords, but they just didn't do any damage at all.
All right. Well, sorry, I was reading through questions, but I guess we'll just go ahead and move straight on to questions. From TL.net user, I'm a Rock. This is probably going to be somewhat touchy. I probably won't offer too much to say about this, but I think it needs to be discussed. However far this discussion goes, I guess we'll just see in a couple seconds. But the question is, given Blizzard has given up with negotiations with Kespa, I've started to grow concerned about regarding SC2's potential to become an esport. Do you think that it is all likely that Kespa will adopt StarCraft 2 over Brood War, and or do you think StarCraft 2 has any potential to start a major esports scene outside of Korea? Are you concerned about the futures of both Brood War and StarCraft 2 as far as esports go as I am? Whoever wants to jump in on that first.
I don't have concerns. Kespa's I really am overwhelmingly strongly opposed to Kespa. Not just like in a rational sense, but also deeply emotionally I dislike Kespa because they just botch things a lot. Like historically they've just never really been on the ball with a lot of things. I mean, especially with the recent corruption scandal, with all the illegal gambling in South Korea. I mean, it really damages the reputation of them as an organization. And I feel like it's actually great that a company like Blizzard is being proactive about taking the competitive scene into their own hands. I mean, a great example of this is Wizards of the Coast with Magic the Gathering and their pro circuit. They do a phenomenal job of that. It's like really streamlined, and they even have professional players that they pay appearance fees to, and it gets a lot of great coverage because they're backed by a really solid company. So I'm really pleased with it, and I definitely think that StarCraft 2 will be like the big springboard for the esports scene outside of Southeast Asia, just because a lot of sponsorships are willing to sponsor a new game that's very clearly popular, and the sales figures will demonstrate that. It has good graphics, and for an executive who doesn't play games and sees the next new thing, if it has really good graphics, which is what a lot of people equate with gameplay when they're unfamiliar with games, then they're going to be more willing to. And assuming that the design balance is going to be getting better and better and better, then the competition will also like playing in the game and like the way it flows.
Right. Nony, do you have any thoughts?
I'll just say I'm not worried about StarCraft 2 as an esport. I think it's going to be fine. So all the other issues are kind of complicated, and I could talk for way too long. But,
yeah, I think we'd probably have to spend an entire podcast on the whole Kespa situation. But TheLittleOne, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Nony and Sean. I didn't really like the Casper either.
All right.
And I also want to add another thing that really pissed me off. I hated it when Kespa came up and were like, oh, Blizzard, oh, they're so unreasonable, oh my god, oh, poor us, and created this big, huge thing. It really angers me because it feels very manipulative, because from what I understand, Blizzard refused to be reasonable with Blizzard. Or excuse me, Kespa refused to be reasonable with Blizzard.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely right there with you.
Incredibly long time. In fact, even not answering the phone for years, trying to avoid Blizzard. And then when Blizzard tries to work with them, and Kespa, gets all basically bratty with them about the rights, and then Blizzard says, well, all right, look, if you want to keep broadcasting, then here are a series of completely outrageous, unreasonable demands, and unless you meet these, you're not allowed to we're not going to continue to negotiate with you. And it's very clearly Blizzard just being like, well, we just don't want to work with you. Rather than saying, no, let's just give them outrageous demands, And now Kespa, it's like a standard negotiating tactic. And now Kespa's like, oh, poor us. Oh, really angers me. So, I am just overwhelmingly strongly against Kespa in every way, shape, and form.
All right. I guess for me, the only thing that I'm just going to really say is it would be retarded if MLG is doing as much stuff as they are right now in StarCraft 2 if we didn't expect to use it in the future. So I'll just say that much because I'll probably get in trouble if I say any more. But definitely pay attention to all the things we're doing. But moving on to the next question, TL.net user 2down is saying, is it possible that the lack of Zerg army diversity and the lack of ultras in the late game is due to the fact that Zerglings aren't as effective in StarCraft 2? In Brood War, a group of Zerglings with speed could raise a base. Never seen raise used like that before. Raise a base with Cracklings while Cracklings were the most terrifying unit in the game in large numbers, especially when paired with Ultras. Would boosting the attack of the Ling and the effectiveness of the Crack upgrade help the Zerg army see more diversity and fun? I like how you added "and fun" there. But what do you guys think about the question? We'll start off with Sean, I guess.
1, 2, 3, not it. Zerglings are pretty good throughout the game, or in the early stages of the game. They're not phenomenal. Well, I don't know. I'm a little weirded out by the Zerg army diversity thing because I use some pretty different compositions. Like Mutaling, Baneling, or Hydra-Ling, Baneling, or Roach Hydra, the more standard staple thing, or just like Roach Muta. There's some pretty cool options that you can do for Zerg. I definitely feel like Zerglings don't have the same punch that they did in StarCraft 1, but then again, that doesn't bother me because I treat StarCraft 1 and 2 as different games.
All right. Nony, do you have any thoughts?
I thought Cracklings were too strong in Brood War. So, yeah, I think I'm a little biased on this question, so I'll pass on that.
TheLittleOne, what do you think?
It's probably better the way it is right now because in StarCraft 1 you could only have 12 units in a group, and now it's just so much easier to control Zerglings. And if they would be as powerful as in StarCraft 1, they would just be massively overpowered.
All right.
Well, that is a good point. Yeah, the whole control size thing.
That's a good point.
I would sort of forget about, because I was even thinking earlier in this podcast about bringing up the fact that, I'm actually watching Jaedong's old Brood War VODs while we're doing this. And, I was watching his Mutalisk control, and I was almost like, and why don't we have that same control in StarCraft 2? And I was like, oh yeah, then I could control group 48 Mutalisks and command centers perfectly,
Yeah. All right, TL.net user, oh man, Jeuh, I guess Jua is how you pronounce that. Question for anyone. It seems to be a very common, I guess we're going to throw this to Nony because it is a Protoss question, but it seems very common for Protoss to do a lot of heavy one base play with 4 3-gate Robo / Stargate into Kaloxin. Wow. Good job, Sean. Good job, Sean, getting Kaloxin out there. All off one base against Zerg on the American servers. Other regions don't seem to suffer as badly from this problem, and games tend to evolve into mid-late game. What do you think accounts for this difference in play style? Are we just not doing a good enough job microing against early toss aggression, or is it simply that players choose to play more macro-oriented styles in different parts of the world? Sorry for the longest question. That's not long at all. You don't have to be sorry. But anyway.
From the little bit that I've played on Europe, people really like to... The other races... Well, Terran likes to expand a lot sooner, from what I've seen, against Protoss. So, yeah. I think that somewhere in the question he was like, the Americans aren't microing well enough against the Protoss one base play. That might be the case. It's probably more likely that you don't know the builds that the Europeans know, because they're pretty creative with the way they expand, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, better than the Americans that I've seen. So I don't know. That's just in my personal experience.
The little one, being European yourself, what do you think about this question, or how would you answer this question?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. I actually was giving another interview to the Gozo Gamer guys, and I told them that the playstyles of the US and Europe server have merged already. So I'm a little bit confused.
So you don't know who? Are you saying you don't know which play style is from where?
No, it's just that I thought that the US players are playing like us too now, and that we adapted to them. But maybe that's just for the maybe top players.
Yeah, I think that's for the top players, and it hasn't really trickled down to the other leagues yet.
Yeah, but then again, I believe if you don't look at the top players in Europe, it's probably the same problem. It's just that they don't see lots of gold players in Europe.
Yeah, probably.
And I also feel like players will naturally one base at the start of like any game, just because it's hard to figure out ways to get away with thin defense.
Yeah, they will.
I mean, in the early Brood War days, like Protoss either 2-gated or 1-gate fast gassed. Like early expanding did not exist for Protoss. And nowadays, when you actually watch a Protoss play against a Zerg, I mean, Jesus, it literally looks like a Protoss is an idiot, because he expands and makes one cannon, and then doesn't make any units for like 10 minutes, and then he gets like one Corsair, and like every single person who I've ever been around who is not, into the pro scene, who maybe is just hanging out by my room and sees me watching a game, he's like, that Protoss is so bad. He will die if he gets attacked at any point. And there's a million and one reasons why he can actually get away with what he's doing, but it took a long time for Protoss players to figure it out. I mean, that playstyle only really came about when Bisu crushed Savior 3-0 in the MSL finals, and that was years and years into the StarCraft development. So the fact that players aren't expanding doesn't really bug me so much. It does bug me that I am trying to figure out ways to expand and I'm losing like tons.
Yeah.
to like one-basing players. But I think this podcast has been a good opportunity for me to get that rage out, so I'm pretty happy about that.
And then once you figure it out, everyone's just going to copy you. So
you're gonna take all the time up to do another podcast to let you let all your rage out.
Yeah, you suffered 50 like humiliating, very frustrating losses. Like
people are just posting replays on TL.net. I just raped day 9. Check out this
Dude,
replay.
it's so true. Like it happens. They'll be like, "Oh my god, are you day 9?" I'm like, only if I win." And then we'll play, and this random person will just like rape me really badly, and I'll just be like, "Oh god." He's like, "Oh, good game, man. You want to be practice partners?" I'm like, "Oh, I want to win."
It's actually really funny that you say that. The person that we had play against Nadagast on last week's Fight Night, Kevs, he actually played you in ladder. I think he met up with you in ladder, and he was telling me about the game you guys were. He was saying that he knows me or something. I guess at the end of the game. I forget exactly. I think you might have spawned Protoss against him, is what he told me. He was playing Zerg. I'm not sure if you remember the game at all. His ID is KVZ. But yeah, he was all excited that he almost beat you, and was saying that like if you would have done one thing different, that he would have actually taken the game. I was like, Sean was probably just trying some strat that he's never really done before.
No, I wouldn't even put it like that. I mean, I just really need a lot of work on my play. I mean, if someone beats me, no excuse. They just like beat me straight up. So I just want that to happen less.
All right. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast because his ego is huge. But moving on. let's move on to the next question from TL.net user Pex with 2K. 2Ks rather. It doesn't look like Blizzard wants to do any big changes to the game, and all the recent balance changes have been very minor. Do you think there are some big issues that still need an overhaul, or do you think the game only needs some small stat changes? I would say that patch 11 had some pretty big changes in it when it comes to specific units, but maybe that's just me. What do you guys think?
All the changes have felt pretty fucking major.
Yeah. Well, which patch notes are you reading? Because I don't know. It seems like every change has been pretty significant, especially in some of these matchups. Nony or Little One, do you guys have any thoughts to add?
Well, to be really elitist and condescending, maybe some people just don't. They just can't tell the difference. They're just kind of like building stuff and doing stuff, and some of these changes are for like some specific situations, and if you just kind of play the game casually, you might not really feel the differences in these changes. But people who rely on getting every ounce of use out of their units, they definitely feel the changes. And so even things that look small are pretty big.
All right. Little One, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, maybe he's expecting some new units or some kind of that stuff, but we won't release it until the expansion packs.
Yeah, I think Blizzard might have actually said this, not 100% sure, but I don't think we'll see any units being added or taken away at this stage in the beta. I mean, the game ships, the 27th of July, and it is May 11th right now. I think if they were going to add anything in, it would have already been added in terms of complete new units. So that's about all the questions. Do you guys have, the podcast is a little bit long right now, but if there's anything else you guys kind of want to throw up in the air to discuss, do it now, because if not, we're going to wrap things up. So here's your 10 seconds of silence or 10 seconds of something to talk about.
I'm probably going to get sushi after this.
Nice. Where are you going to go?
Sushi Delight.
Is that a local place?
It is.
All right, and there's the 10 seconds. All right, so yeah, that is going to do it for this episode of State of the Game. We will be back. I don't know. I want to do this more weekly, but it is quite hard to figure out everyone's schedule, which is why we also had the same people from week 3 minus Jinro in this cast. But Sean will probably always be here, and of course Nony and the Little One are always welcome on the show whenever they have the time. But we'll go ahead and toss it around to kind of do some self-promotion here. Sean, you can go ahead first since you probably have the most stuff to promote here besides me.
My live stream has moved. I'm currently at ustream.tv/channel/day9tv. So easy to remember. You can also watch any of my videos and tournament casts on day9tv.blip.tv. I think that URL's correct. Let me just make sure I'm not full of shit.
As the thunder comes down from his keyboard.
Yeah. Let me just check that out.
Let me pull up my machine gun real quick to use my computer.
Yeah, that's actually correct. And actually, the most recent one that's been uploaded is Nony's games. You can get a chance to see Nony's Phoenix play and why he's such a baller. But yeah, what else? Oh yeah, I'm casting the GhostofGamers.net Asia vs. Euro show match. I'll be doing that with Greetorp. That'll be at 6 a.m. Saturday and Sunday.
Oh man, how fun is that?
Yes, it's gonna hurt, but I'll pull it off.
Wait, that's at 6 a.m. Saturday, you said?
And Sunday, yeah. So that's
man, you gotta cast our MLG stuff on Saturday night. I feel so bad for you.
It ain't no thing. I'll probably do that cast and sleep right until 7 p.m. and wake up and do it. That's almost the sleep schedule I was on. I had to set my alarm to get up at 2:30 for this podcast. So.
It is summer, so that's usually the pretty, I would say, standard sleep schedule of a hardcore nerd.
On Mars time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Nony, do you have anything you feel like promoting?
I'm going to be playing Hydra for HDH on Friday, I believe at 6:30 PST, 9:30
Will that be a live cast?
EST. I think so. I think they are live casting for the semifinals on out. I know they're at least live casting the Little One versus White Raw. which is I'm going to do his promotion for him. LittleOne's playing White Raw on
Oh wow!
or tomorrow.
Maybe we should
at
discuss
1
that a
p.m.
little bit.
Pacific.
I totally forgot that both of you guys were in the semifinals for the HDH Invitational. But Nony, I've got one question for you. How many command centers do you think we're going to see canceled? Is he just going to randomly get a command center with a neural parasite and then just cancel it? You think in the game, or?
Yeah, I think I have some new tricks up my sleeve. So the canceled command centers, that was so like last month.
All right.
I'll find other ways to make Hydra embarrass himself.
Will we see a GG in the game?
See what?
A GG from Hydra.
Oh, yeah.
Not in 1 million years.
I think you will.
Does he actually respect you?
He respects. I am like one of 6 billion people on this earth. Well, actually, I'm like one of the 3 of 6 billion people on this earth who Hydra respects, or at least he respects my play. So you have a little bit of chance of seeing Hydra type GG if you watch me play him.
All right, there is a promise. We better see it happen. But LittleOne, one thing I want to definitely talk about with you is you played Chthon Luck in the MLG Showcase Series 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe 3. And Chthon Luck, I mean, I think, was it a 4-1? If I can remember.
4-0.
4-0. So yeah, honestly, I'll be completely honest and look like the giant douchebag. But going into the HDH tournament, I knew that you were going to be probably playing him if you got to the round of 8. And I actually haven't watched those games yet. But I mean, you pulled it out. What changed between the MLG Showcase Series and the HDH Invitational? Did you just practice a lot, or?
One major change was www.battleping.com.
Oh, okay.
Which reduces lag to US. And
are you sponsored by them now, or?
No, but I want to. It's an awesome program, so I wanted to advertise them.
Right. I think that's just a rerouting program, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely Europeans interested in playing on the American servers. Does it work for American to Europe?
Yeah. The other way around, I can notice a difference when I play in Europe.
Definitely check that out. What was the URL again?
www.battleping.com.
All right, there's a little shameless plug for Battle Ping.
I sincerely hope that it does improve your ping to Europe. Because, I mean, honestly, maybe it's because I'm awful, but I didn't notice there's that much of a difference. So, I mean, if I go on there and it's like, turns out my internet connection's really good, I'll be a lot more pleased. Because I'm like concerned. Because, when you said no, you're like, oh yeah, it's just so great. I can't believe how much better it is. I was like, uh-oh.
Well, when I played from North Carolina, I actually didn't. It was perfectly fine when I connected to Europe. And then
but now you're in the shithole that is San Antonio.
Yeah, I'm in Texas now.
Sorry, there's some pent-up anger there. San Antonio's internet is horrible.
Yeah.
Jesus, don't get me started on that. But
yeah, I was just playing on Europe today, and it was lagging. There's like noticeable latency, so I tried out Battle Ping, and there's still a little bit of latency, but it's a lot better.
All right, and LittleOne, you are going to be playing White Raw in the semifinals of HDH, and I think the last time you guys met, White Raw he beat you, correct? I'm not wrong. You guys haven't had a series since the one I think I saw Sean cast a couple weeks back, correct?
Yeah.
So, going towards this, obviously you played him on Europe servers. Are you preparing for this at all? I know you said you really don't prepare for some of these matches, but oh, okay. All right. So yeah, we're just gonna act like that never happened. But definitely watch those matches on Friday, whatever the time was that Nony said. I forgot. I think you said 6 PST or something like that.
I think his is going to be tomorrow at 1 PST, and mine's going to be on Friday at 6:30 PST.
All right, so there you go. Remember to watch. Now it's time for me to do the entire spiel of all the MLG stuff. We have the Fright Night. Wow, it's not Halloween. Fight Night on Friday at 9 p.m. CDT, and that is 7 o'clock Pacific. We also have the Showcase Series, which I think we are going to be doing live at around 10 o'clock Central and 8 o'clock Pacific on Thursday night. And then, of course, we have the State of the Game stuff, which we'll probably be doing possibly on, I'm hoping every Tuesday from now on. We'll have to make sure that that's going to work for the people involved with this. And also make sure to check out GameBattles.com, the StarCraft 2 1v1 league and possibly a 2v2 league will be going up there by the time this podcast is launched, if not in a couple days. So make sure to check that. I'll go ahead and put links to all of that stuff in the podcast thread that will be going up on TL.net. Also remember that to check out the MLG PC stuff here at ustream.com/channel/MLGPC, and all of the King of the Hill beta show match VODs, as well as the Fight Night VOD, can be found at youtube.com/Major League Gaming. That is going to be thrown in with all of the console leagues as well. So you're going to kind of have to search. Usually in the latest uploads, you will find that the StarCraft 2 vids relatively easy. So I guess that's going to go ahead and do it. This is on iTunes, or should be. I'm pretty sure they sent me a confirmation email saying that it will be on iTunes. So if it's not, someone please inform me that it isn't in the thread, and I will do the best possible to get that up. We are also have an RSS feed. You can check that out. It'll all be in the thread. So we'll be back next week with episode 5 of State of the Game. We are out.